Hey everybody. This video is talking you guys through your third and last essay for the course. We are switching gears here completely, so you are not continuing with the same topic and stance as your first two essays. We are writing a literary analysis essay in this essay over a short story that we're going to read for the course called In a Grove. So want to reiterate that one more time. Do not write an essay over the same topic and stance as essays number 1 and 2. We're switching gears completely. We're writing a literary analysis essay over the short story In a Grove. So having read In a Grove, you guys are going to create an argument about the text that's focused on either a character, a theme, or an approach. So we've looked at kind of this information here, but a character basically means that you're looking at a specific character, you're looking at their motivations, their behaviors, and you're thinking about some different aspects of that character. So thinking about what are the main characteristics that you can kind of gather from the text, and then other characters' descriptions of them. So how do you know that these are the characteristics? How do you know this is what's true about them? Is there anything that conflicts about that character? Are they trustworthy? Why might they be telling the truth, or why might they be lying? What do they have to gain in either case or lose? And then what's the background of those characters? And think also about the smaller or kind of secondary characters in the story as well. If you're doing a theme, basically you're looking at the overall message of the story. So what is it that the reader is supposed to understand or get out of the story? And what evidence do you have that suggests that's a valid theme? So what from the story tells you that? So if I said Star Wars, the theme was that, evil always wins. That's not true, right? That's not the true theme. If I said good always wins or good overpowers evil, you could cite Luke's battle with Vader. You could cite all kinds of things as evidence of that. And an approach, if you choose to do that, that has to do with the school of thought or the way that you read the story. So you've kind of read about, learned about these different sort of approaches. So whether that's a feminist approach, a close reading approach, a historical approach, whatever it might be, a new criticism approach, it's how you approach the story. So there's a lot of different ways you can kind of analyze In a Grove. I think it's up to you how you want to focus on the analysis, whether that's character, theme, or approach. But you do need to have all parts of an argument normally that you would have. You are just analyzing a piece of literature here. So your essay is 2.5 to 3.5 pages in length and is due on Sunday, December 5th by 11:59 p.m. What that means is you need to have it to the middle of the the middle of the third page at least. You can always write more, you just can't write less. If you write less, you will have points taken off. Mla formatting is required as usual. Everything's checked for plagiarism, and then make sure you meet the minimum page length requirements. Because this is due just before finals week, there is no turnaround time if you don't get it submitted in time or it doesn't upload correctly. So this does need to be, make sure you turn this in on time, make sure you are ahead of the game a little bit on this one. And then you're basically just going to submit a final draft with the bibliography. So sources are not required in this essay. If you want to use them, you're more than welcome to, but your bib should have at least one citation on it, which is the citation for the short story. So just some examples to kind of help you guys out. If you choose to analyze a character, think about how you portray that character that you're examining. So look for motivations and behavior patterns that tell you what that person is. Find evidence that supports that. So characters can be primary, they can be secondary, they can be antagonists, they can be protagonists. You can look at things like narration. So first person narration versus third person omniscient. You could look at conflict, like man versus society. Those all are parts of character analysis that you could think about. So for example, you might examine one of the side characters like the policeman, or you might examine, say, the woodcutter, or you might examine one of the main characters and decide, is that character guilty? Are they lying? Did they do it? Those are always good questions to kind of think about. Either way, you want to have a kind of a central focus or argument about that character that you kind of portray in your thesis statement. Um, Themes, there are a lot of different themes in the short story that you could choose from. So I've just given you some ideas. Again, you're not limited to these, but you could think about the idea of truth and what is truth. Is it relative or is it absolute? Or truth versus perception. You could think about the ideas of honor or virtue. You could think of what love is, the theme of love itself. Is love real or is love, not real, or is it just lust, or is it just based on experience, or what is love? Or you could even do something like the ideas of tradition versus rebellion. So, how does rebellion or tradition play into this story? An approach, there are a lot of different things you could do. You could do a feminist reading of one of the main characters and her role in the story. You could do a cultural reading, so really interesting. I've had some students have very interesting cultural readings of the samurai or of Japanese culture and how it relates to a specific character or a theme found in the story. You could do a psychological reading of the characters. I've had students do some really interesting things about some of the proposed murderer. Is he does he have a certain psychological disorder? You could even do something like a new critical reading of a certain symbol. Say, I've had students do the sword, or maybe the setting where they die. There are a lot of different things you could kind of analyze here. As you make your choice between a character, a theme, or an approach, think really about what you want to say about this piece of literature. So, what do you find most interesting? And what do you want to say about it? So, you're not limited to these examples. You are more than welcome. Please do create your own understandings or ideas. You do not have to have this approved ahead of time. But if you want to email me, I'm happy to kind of double check or give you ideas or whatever it might be. You are required to have, as usual, parts of the argument. So a good thesis claim, reasons with evidence, and then awareness and acknowledgement of the opposing views and refutation. So if, for example, you're going to argue that a specific character is guilty, you may acknowledge that, hey, it looks like this other character is actually guilty, but here's why they're not. Or if you're, say, going to argue that the idea of rebellion is really the central theme of the story, you may acknowledge that perhaps somebody else thinks it's a different theme, but why that's incorrect. So in the final submission, you're just going to need to submit a clean draft of your essay with a bibliography with at least the citation of the short story on it. And that should be all you need to submit for this essay. So again, I hope you guys have fun with this. It's really interesting to kind of approach a short story in different ways. So I'm always fascinated to see what students find most interesting about it and what they want to talk about in their argument and in their essay. If you have any questions at all about this, let me know. And make sure you're using the lectures and the materials to kind of help guide your analysis, because there's a lot of good literary terminology that you can incorporate into this. Now, one thing I did forget to say, I apologize, is that when you are incorporating evidence from the short story, it should be just like you do with your source material in your second essay, where you pull in specific quotes from the text that show your audience what you're talking about. So, for example, if I'm going to argue that the central theme is, in fact, tradition is more important than rebellion or something like that, I would pull in specific quotes from the text from those characters that show that idea in play. Or if I'm going to say that, I view a psychological reading of the murderer, then I would pull in specific quotes that show or help prove that my reading of that character is correct. So just make sure you're doing that and citing those in source and in text and on the bibliography as well. Let me know if you have any questions at all.